Hi everyone, welcome to today's presentation on how to save time and reduce risk with CCH KPI Monitoring. So my name is Jess Lindo. I've probably met a few of you before, I think. I've been out in practice before. I used to work in professional services, but I'm currently the go-to-market manager for practice products, so document management, practice management, workflow, KPI monitoring as well, obviously, and I do some work on CCH One-Click as well. So that's why I'm doing this presentation for you today. Okay, so what we're going to expect from this session, 2 seconds. Let's have a little... Sorry, I'm just clicking through the slides for you. It's not going through. Okay, so for today's session, for those of you not familiar with our software, CCH KPI Monitoring is a white labeled product that we use from a company called ECI Software Solutions that integrates directly into our CCH central data. So we've worked with this company for a really, really long time, for about over 20 years. So it's a very long-standing partnership, and it's a really, really great piece of software. So hopefully you'll see that during the presentation today. During the presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of CCH KPI Monitoring, why you should use it and how it can benefit your practice. I'm then going to have a little look at a client case study to show you how the software can be used in practice. And finally, what's next and how do you find out any further information. So as you've probably seen on the slide at the beginning, if you've got any questions, if you can just pop those in the box and we'll have a little look at those right at the end. So what I'm just going to do quickly here, you should get on your screen, you should get a poll popping up. And all I'm just going to ask you a quick question is, do you currently, or are you using CCH KPI monitoring currently? So it's just yes, no, or don't know. So if you could just answer that question, give you a couple of seconds to have a look at that. Perfect. So the majority of you, have not used it yet. So there's probably a couple of you that are. So hopefully the ones that are using it, there may be a couple of new ideas in here for you today, but obviously you'll know what the software is. But for the rest of you, it's all going to be new, so I shall tell you all about it in the presentation. There we go. Okay, so what is CCH KPI monitoring? First of all, I'm just going to give you a quick definition of a KPI, because obviously that is the main part of the product name. So key performance indicators help organizations understand how well they're performing in relation to their strategic goals and objectives. In the broadest sense, a KPI can be defined as providing the most important performance information that enables organizations to understand whether they are on track or not. And as an accountant, you probably already have a number of KPIs that you use in your practice to monitor how well your practice is doing. And why do we need to measure this performance? So there are a number of reasons why we need to measure performance within an organization, but generally it's to learn and improve. We want our business to be continually improving and moving forward. We want to be able to report both internally and externally and demonstrate compliance, and also to monitor our people in the nicest possible sense. So basically KPIs are there to give us information which helps us to make better informed decisions. And that's the whole point of our CCH KPI monitoring software, is to help you do that. So from this picture, you can probably see this is what we tend to think of the monitoring software as, is a virtual admin assistant. So it monitors your CCH central database and automatically alerts you or sends reports when predefined conditions are met. And we'll go through what those conditions, the reports and conditions are further on in the presentation. But how the software works is every field in the central database can be reported on. So you can create alerts on practice management data, document management, accounts, personal tax, workflow, and so on. And the alerts can be real-time based on a trigger event happening, or they can be periodic and delivered as reports or summary emails. So either of those options can be used when you're setting up the alerts. And once set up, this is why we say it's a virtual admin assistant, because once set up, the software sits in the background and it monitors your system without much further intervention. So most of the work is done at the beginning, where you set the alerts up and then they just sort of sit in the background and monitor your system. Okay, so why would you want to use CCH KPI monitoring? Hopefully you're starting to understand why. But there's a couple of questions that I just want you to consider first of all. So how much time do you spend in your practice every day, week or month on producing and sending internal reports? And how much time is spent in your practice sending communications to staff, such as requests for updates on jobs or tasks, or sending chasers or reminders? So, for example, how much time is spent by your admin department producing and distributing reports for monthly meetings? Or how much time is spent reminding staff to complete their timesheets? So that's probably a lot in most practices. And again, another question, so do you ever find out about preventable situations that have occurred after the event, or once it's too late to do anything about them? So for example, for this one, when you come to create a bill, do you find that your work in progress has gone over the agreed billable amount, so you can no longer recover all of your costs? If you'd have known about it sooner, you'd have been able to do something about it, or at least minimize the losses on the job. So if any of these questions sort of resonate with you and your practice, then CCH KPI monitoring could be something that you'd like to consider. So how can it benefit your practice? There are a number of benefits from the software, but the top 5 really, and obviously the title of this presentation. So the first one is reduce overheads and manual processes. So internal processes that don't make money need to be reduced. And the automation provided by CCH KPI monitoring will transform how efficiently your practice operates and ultimately improve your bottom line. So as we saw before, like reports can automatically be generated, saving both admin time and the need for the physical distribution of information. And there are a lot more examples that we will have a little look at further on, but I'll discuss these with you when we look at the case study in a real life practice situation. Also, if you are registered on our support site, there is a KPI calculator. There's a section for CCH KPI monitoring, and there's a calculator on there that you can use to see the time and cost savings. It's just a little example. So I think there's 4 example alerts on there, and it just gives you a little idea of how much money and time you could save just by implementing 4 individual alerts. So that's on the CCH support site if you want to have a look at that as well. Secondly, it provides real-time information, so alerts can be sent by email or text. So the data is going to be available to you wherever you are. Partners and staff can keep in touch with how the business is performing, whether they're in the office or out visiting clients, so they can get that information as soon as it's available. Minimize risk, this is a big one. So having CCH KPI monitoring overlooking your data means you can deal with any issues before they become problems, as we mentioned in that example before, where the WIP goes over the agreed billable amount. You could have an alert set up to notify you when that WIP reaches, say, 80% of your budget. So this allows you, once that figure is reached, allows you to be proactive rather than trying to firefight a situation that's already occurred, so you can do something about it before you can't recover those costs. Okay, maintaining practice standards. So you can enforce practice procedures, and an example of this is, say, sending out an engagement letter with a set time frame, or ensuring a client's money laundering information has been received, and that can all be alerted on. And specific to your practice, so even though we provide you with a number of standard alerts that come with the software, these can all be fully customized, as well as new alerts being set up that are specific to you and your requirements. So hopefully from this, you're beginning to see how it could be useful for your practice. So we're just going to have a really quick look at the software. I'm going to show you a couple of screens. and how the alerts are set up. I'm not going to go into any detail on this. It's going to be very high level, and you'll see when we look at it, the software is quite technical, and I'll explain how we get around that in a little bit. But I'm just going to show you what it looks like at the moment. Okay, so it's a bit of software at the moment. It's installed on your server, and this is what you get when you click on the start menu in Windows. So you can see here it's actually named Vineyard Soft Knowledge Sync, which is the company that I mentioned before that we partner with. And it's split up into these different sections. So most of the work's done in the event manager, which is where all the events and everything are created. The rest of it, so the administrator, the monitor, they're all like admin functions of it. So I'm going to just show you the event manager. So this is what it looks like. This is the dashboard, and they're all of the events that I've got set up in this sort of test environment. If I just zoom in on that red box there on the left-hand side under KPI monitoring, what actually happens is we need to set up the queries first. So once you have those ideas, so say I'm going to say missing timesheets, you want to create a query that pulls out all of the missing timesheet information. And the way the setup is using this wizard to set up the query. So you can see here we've got like tables, links and columns. The actual software is based on, and all the queries are based on SQL. So I'll tell you about the training that we offer afterwards as well, because initially it does need a little bit of SQL knowledge to be able to set these up. But basically it's all set up through a wizard here. Then once you have all your queries set up, you would go to create an event. So you can actually have a number of events running off one query. So say for this one here, once I've set up my query, I can use it and I'll say, right, I want an event where I want the missing timesheet query to run every day at 5 p.m. So again, this is set up using this wizard, and you can see on the top here that we have, you pick the query that you want to use. We then have subscribers, so those alerts can be sent to whoever you specify in your organization, and then a schedule as well, so whenever you want that alert to run. If you just look back on the left-hand side as well, where it says report definitions and scheduled reports as well, that works in exactly the same way. So you would set up the reports that you want to run, and then you would tell the system when you wanted those reports to be sent out. And we will look at how those work in a few of the examples in a second. Okay, so from there you probably saw there were quite a few alerts on my list that I had. We do send out this a package with the software, so you do get a set of predefined alerts that we give you to get started with, which obviously you can amend for your practice. But just you will get sent this presentation as well, so I'm not going to go through all of this, all of these lists and each one separately. But you can see from here there's a lot of examples of the alerts that you can use. So for example, new clients. So you can get an alert which sends you a list of any, honestly on a Monday morning, any new clients that have registered the week previously. Any clients that have money laundering information outstanding, a list of any clients that have been lost in a certain period of time. And on all of these alerts, you can also set up date and time as well. So if you want to specify an alert to be sent after a deadline, if you've got a deadline saved on your system as an extra field, for example, you can set the alert, say 7 days after that date, and then you can set it to send an alert on that. Timesheets, this is a really popular one. This is the one that we always set up when someone comes out to do your training and set the system up for you. We usually always set up missing timesheets because that's what people tend to use straight away. We can also do it on examples for expenses to be authorized, Data integrity is a good one. So if you've got a client set up on the system and there's data missing, so if there's no email address, you can run an alert and say, right, give me a list of all a certain partner's clients that have the email address missing, or if there's no phone number, that sort of thing. Document management as well. If you've used document management and you use the tasks within document management, if you've got those sort of sitting in your document inbox, we can set up alerts to remind people that they've got things to do in their inbox just sitting there that need to be actioned. Okay, and then ones we mentioned previously, so we've got work in progress. You can alert, so say you get to work in progress gets to 90% of your budget, which is the one we mentioned. It can send an alert to the partner and say, right, what do you want to do now? Do you want to stop any more work being done on it? Are you happy for it to go to that level? Can you recover all the costs on that if it goes above that level? And then the same with debtors as well. So any clients that have got balances over 30 days old or 60 days, they're all, you can specify all those figures as well. So you can say, you could say 37 days if you wanted to, that sort of thing. So that's all customizable in the system. Okay, so obviously we haven't gone over any of those in detail, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the types of alerts that can actually be created, because there's quite a lot. So any field in the central database can be reported on. So the next thing I'm just going to show you here is if anyone was at Accountex or the Northern User Group earlier in the year, Ian Smith, who's one of the partners at Rycroft Glenton, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying, is my old boss, so I used to work for him. He did a presentation at Accountex and the user group about how Rycroft Glenton use CCH KPI Monitoring, because they're a big user of the software. They're a firm in the northeast of England, so in Newcastle. They've got 100 staff and partners over 4 offices, so it's quite a large organisation. And they've used KPI monitoring since I think around 2001. So they've had it quite a while. And obviously I was there when we used it as well, so I have used the software in practice. So when they first started, a lot of the processes were, and some still are, manual. So I'm just going to give you a quick. I'm going to do Ian's bit now and just go through it. But he's given me all this information. So this is how they used it and how they did it from the start. So how did they implement it? First of all, they'd obviously identified a need in the practice for something like KPI monitoring. So they had a lot of manual processes that they realized could easily be automated. So first of all, I learned what KPI alerts can do, how it works. So that's what you're doing today, is having a look at this and seeing what the software actually does. Next, they made a list of what they wanted to automate, because obviously there's quite a big scope of what you can automate. So they made a list of what reports they could probably use, they could automate, any processes that were taken up a lot of time, any reminders. So obviously if you're in say for the timesheet example, if you're in a smaller office and there's only 4 or 5 of you and someone's got a missing timesheet, it's quite easy to just shout across the room and say, can you do your timesheet? But if you're in a larger firm, or you've got multiple offices, it's quite a big job. So it's that sort of thing that they thought that they could automate and get some training. So I didn't write this, surprisingly. This is from Ian, and he said he can't emphasize this one highly enough. So as I mentioned before, the alerts are SQL query based, so you do need a bit of knowledge of SQL. And what happens when you buy the CCH KPI monitoring, you get 2 days. So when you buy the software, so that you get an installation. So we will come and install it for you, and we will also, in those 2 days that you pay for when you get the software, we will set up some standard alerts for you. So to get you started, usually that's the timesheet one plus a couple of others. And then we will give you a bit of training as well on how to go through that wizard that I showed you before, and how to link the tables, because that's the big bit of knowledge that you need. But once you've got that, it's a pretty straightforward bit of software. But obviously you would need that training to get started, unless you're a SQL wizard, which some people are, so you never know, you might be able to do it. Next, he's saying get CCH to write the complex ones. So obviously at the time when I was there and we got the KPI monitoring software, we didn't have a massive amount of SQL knowledge, so the complex ones that we wanted, we got CCH to actually write for us. And then we started, they started writing their own, starting with the most relevant. Okay, and the first ones that they actually started with were, obviously, surprisingly, timesheets overdue. So you can see there's just an example on the right-hand side of what actually comes out of the software. So I know seeing that screen before, it's not really a pretty bit of software, because all the work's sort of done in the background, and this is what is produced. So the emails are produced, that's the output of the software, or you get a text. So this is the timesheet one, just saying you've a missing or unposted timesheet. And the way that they actually set that one up was on a Monday morning, the staff would get an alert saying you haven't done your timesheet for last week, can you please do it? And then a Tuesday, they get another one saying you still haven't done your timesheet. And then I think on a Wednesday, a list of the people that hadn't done the timesheet still would go to the staff partner. So you can actually set it up in that sort of process as well. So as I said, from that one timesheet query, you can have a lot of events coming off that. So you can set up those as and when you want them. A telephone list update as well. So that was just an alert that was run to send out the most up-to-date telephone list. Again, new clients with missing info that we've discussed already. And the high value WIP one, and so they tend to be the most common that people start with, but obviously that's totally up to you. They then looked at a client onboarding process. So that was a process that was very manual, and there were so many components to it that things were getting missed when they were onboarding new clients. So everything was mapped out and broken down into the different sections that could be automated using the software. And first of all, so when they got the clients and the client information was added to CCH Central, there was an alert to the admin staff to say if there were any missing or incorrect assignments, and then alert for any missing crucial data, so year end, email address, that sort of thing. And then that was automatically added to the client gains report. Then once the client was live, there was an alert to the partner about the professional indemnity groups or links to other clients, and a reminder to them to recommend the fee protection service. And then again, so once that was done, the anti-money laundering section, so an alert was sent to the partner, and then if the date was not completed, so they had an extra field, if that wasn't completed, so the money laundering information hadn't been received, then alert would be sent to the partner to say that hadn't been received from the client. And again, with the engagement letter as well. So once the client was put on the system, and they would get an alert saying a client of this particular type has been added to the system, you now need to send them an engagement letter. And again, using the dates on the extra field, if the engagement letter hadn't been returned, they would also get an alert. So you can see how the whole onboarding process there has been automated through using the KPI software. Something similar as well for client disengagement. When a client was lost, an alert was sent to the partner saying, you've got WIP to recover, have you billed it, what are you going to do with it, are you going to write it off? And then a report would be sent to the senior partner for that work in progress, just to show them the clients that had been lost and what had been written off as well. And similar to the engagement letter, there's the disengagement letter. An alert would be sent to them to prompt them to send the disengagement letter. and to confirm that that client had been closed, and it would automatically be added to the losses report. So there were two, the client onboarding and the disengagement were two processes that were very manual, but they'd been automated using the software, and you can see there how they've broken them down into the different sections. Okay, so other processes that they use in Rycroft Glenton, other areas that they use the monitoring software for, they actually have a dormant company system where they would store all of the dates within CCH Central as extra fields. So they would use those extra fields and use the KPI calculations to show 9 months plus the year end. And that would give them the alert at that period of time. So they managed that whole system using KPI monitoring. There was also every fortnight, so for their disaster recovery routine, they would run a report on the system, extracting all the client information. So I think if the building burned down or something like that, they would have their client database. Basically, it would be emailed to Ian as the IT partner and the IT manager, so they would have that information off-site. And then the tax investigation as well. So any clients that had been under tax investigation for over 6 months to a year, they used to use the fee protection tab within Central, so they would alert on that as well. So there's just a couple more examples for you to have a look at there. And as I showed you before, this is the output of that system. So the emails, you can see here, this is one that's saying, this is a list of your clients that have been sent a VAT engagement letter, but they haven't returned it yet. And you can see here, just on that screen there, how the format of that email, but obviously that can be formatted in any way that you want for the information to come out. And there's just a couple more examples there as well. So for the audit engagement letter, and that was the disaster recovery report as well. Okay, and future projects. So these are alerts that they're wanting to look at, and they do actually have in-house. Their new IT manager there is very good with SQL, so they are able to create a lot of the alerts themselves. So there's the twice daily updated WIP and debtors and exposure for the firm and partners on the intranet. So at the moment, these are produced as reports, and I know this information is actually available on Central, but it can be sometimes difficult to get partners to actually log into CCH Central and have a look at the dashboards. So they've actually decided they were going to put that on the intranet there. There's a KPI for productivity for staff, because they've all got the personal targets at the moment. Month-end reports. So previously, the reports would be printed out at the end of the month and sent and handed out at the partners meeting, but they're wanting to create alerts to just send those out automatically by email or to the intranet, so those reports are available for the partners. They want to alert on assignments for closed clients, which are made live again. I think this is to try and stop people from charging time to closed clients, but that's another example of the sort of thing that can be done. And again, alerts where partners exceed their exposure target. So this is currently only reported on once per month as a printed report. And lessons learned from the implementation of CCH KPI monitoring. These are all Ian's words. So as we mentioned, the system is totally customizable, so you must get training and consultancy to get the best out of it. Don't flood people with warnings or emails. It's obviously, once you start automating everything, it's really, really good that you don't have to manually do these processes. But as you know, if you get a lot of emails into your inbox, people do sometimes tend to just skip through them or ignore them. So just be very selective of sort of what and when you send the alerts out. Choose different times of the day, so don't send all your alerts out at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, because they'll probably just get lost. Start with the easy ones, but useful to engage, and then expand on that. Don't try to be too clever. I'm not really sure what he means by that, but And the only limit is your imagination or your knowledge of the CCH database. So again, you can report on and alert on anything within the database. Okay, so just quickly, what is next? There is a new version of the software coming out. So we're on version 9 at the moment, so version 10 is going to be coming out hopefully later in the year. And there's a few new features in it that, because I've used this software for a really, really long time, there's a few new features that are really exciting for me. And I think having seen version 9 and how that looks, version 10 looks a lot better. And they've got a few different features, which I'll show you now. So they've now got, it's all in a browser-based interface. So as we saw before, it was installed on your server, and then you had that under your start menu, you had all the different sections under there. So they've now got a single browser-based user interface, which replaces the separate navigator, the administrator, monitor, and the event manager. So that's all now in one single place, available on a browser, which is brilliant. In addition to that, at the moment you use ODBC connections, but the native database will now have access to Oracle and SQL Server databases as well. There's going to be an interface for calling REST APIs, for retrieving and sending data to thousands of web apps as well. So that's a really good feature of the new version. Multi-tenant support, so that's going to handle multiple independent accounts on one Knowledge Sync server, and the code has been completely rewritten, so it's pretty much a brand new product. It's been completely written from that version 9 that we've seen before, but that's just so it's modernizing it, getting it ready to expand the product into the future. So that is coming, I'm going to say at the end of the year, hopefully the end of the year, but obviously I will do some go-to-market when that comes out, and inform everyone when that's going to be and what it's going to look like and everything like that. So I shall let you know about that as well. Okay, so let's have a look and see if we have any questions. There's the one. There's the cost. The cost question. Yeah, if you're interested and want to know the cost of this one, if you just give your account manager a shout, or I can, I'll give you my email at the end as well. But it'll probably be better to speak to your account manager for the cost of it. The new version is actually going to change slightly. So this is, at the moment, the way that it's priced is you pay for the product and pay for a couple of days installation and training. The new version is going to be slightly different. It's going to be a subscription-based pricing model, so that'll change a little bit. But yeah, if you could speak to your account manager about the cost, or if they're not sure, just drop me an email and we can have a little chat about that as well. Another question. So I've got, do the alerts need updating at any point? No. So once you set your alerts up, once you've set all the queries up and everything like that, unless you want to make changes to the alert, you don't have to do anything to that. They just sit in the background, and they will run without you having to do anything. 2 seconds. Can you use any of the fields that you would in reporting to build KPI queries? Yes, you can. So you can report on any field in the central database. Okay, another one. Is there an upgrade path from the old version to the latest? Yes, there is. So if you're currently on version 9, there's going to be a conversion. So yes, there is. Don't worry about that. Okay. And right, so what I'll do, because we've got a couple more questions there, but I think what I will do is have a look at those after the webinar, and I will report back to people. I'll download them afterwards because we've got quite a few, and I'll download those and get back to everyone individually, if that's okay. So there we go. And to find out more, so here we go, information. If you want to find out more about it, we do have, there's a CCH KPI monitoring page on the WK website. We've also got some information on the support site. But if you are interested, obviously speak to your account manager. And my email is on there, which I will leave on the screen for a few minutes. Obviously, you'll get a copy of this, this webinar as well tomorrow. But yeah, feel free to just email me if you've got any more questions. I will look at all the questions as well. If there's some I haven't answered there, I will get back to you individually. I'll send you an email. But yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you.